So you drove away with your block heater cord plugged in. Way to go. That's all right. I think we've pretty much all been there. So today I'm going to show you how to repair that end. Now, if it broke anywhere else along that line, especially at the block, you're probably going to want to take it to your technician. Unless you're really handy with the tools and really familiar with your vehicle, then I say go for it. In the meantime, we're going to repair this extension cable that I happen to have and need an end for. And it happens to be the same configuration as our block heater, plus mine's still attached, so it works out great. All right, let's get started. First things first, we are going to need some supplies and some tools. And when you go shopping for a plug, make sure that it is a male end, all right? And it has the two forward flat prongs and a grounding prong. This is really important that it is the same, otherwise it will not function properly. Now this particular end is weatherproof. It is pretty heavy duty. I would suggest that, especially because this is something that is going to be exposed to the elements. You don't want any grime and guck getting in there, and you want a good connection. We've got our plug. We are going to need a screwdriver. This particular one is going to need a Phillips, a good X-Acto knife, or something to cut with. Some good cutters, because this sheathing is quite thick, and to get through all of this, to get a good end, and to cut off the frayed material that you'll have, you need something good to cut. Wire cutters slash strippers slash... Okay, this is a multi-use tool. It's got crimpers, it's got a cutter, and it's got wire strippers. First up, what we're going to do is pretend that this is frayed, that it's ripped off and one's longer than the other, and it's just a total garbled mess. What you're going to want to do is take some really good cutters, linesman pliers, so big guys like this will also work. You don't want to cut too far. You want to be very cognizant of how much you're taking off, because you have to remember it does need to hang out of your vehicle so you can still plug it in. There we go. All right. Done with the cutters. Next up, let's have a look at this guy. So we need to know how much to actually take off. We're looking at this outside sheath here, and we have the 3 lines on the inside. When we peel back and cut the outside, we want to make sure we're not damaging any of those inside wires. So we're going to measure about here. We want to leave it on this part to give a chance to have some really good sealing and weatherproofing so that gunk and water and dirt don't get in to this part here and affect our connections. I'm going to take my knife. Don't cut yourself. And just make sure you don't score too far down into the sheathing so that you don't damage the wires inside. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Before we get too much further into the wire stripping and whatnot, we need to make sure that we put this through this hole. If we don't have this on our line and we go to put this on, we're going to have to take this off because we won't be able to get this on. So just work it through the bottom. I admit this one is a little tight. Make sure you loosen up on the clamp. That'll help. Oh yeah, I win. So just slide that down enough that it's out of your way. I'm going to get ready to strip these wires for their connections. Speaking of connections, it does make a difference where each of these wires goes. Green, of course, is ground. Black is hot, and it goes to gold. Silver is neutral. This is really important to put these in the right spot. Otherwise, things won't work properly and it can be damaging. So we need to know how much of the sheath on these ones to take off. So we basically do the same thing as we did for taking this sheath off. I wouldn't go too much more than that. It can compromise your connections if you get a little overboard on things. So let's just go that far in these guys. All right, let's talk wire strippers. Wire strippers actually cut and strip at the same time. If you're not sure what gauge wire you have, all you have to do is hold your wire in the other side, and if you can see all of the wires through and it's covering up the sheath, you're good to go. See, this one might work. It's a little bit big. And this one here is too small because we're not getting all the wires well. You want to avoid things like this where the little copper wires separate. So make sure you're careful about picking the right size. The larger the number, the smaller the wire, which is kind of interesting, but hey, we go with it. I'm using a 14 on this one. So we measure down, you pinch it, give it a wiggle, and pull. Easy as pie. You shouldn't be getting any of these wires, shouldn't be breaking or coming off when you do that. And don't be afraid to go back. If you need to take a little more off, take a little more off. These in here, you can tell there's like a little U shape. Our line has to go in between, and then it is sandwiched in between here to make the connection. Little copper wires have a tendency to fray, so if you give them a little twist, that'll keep them from coming apart when you're putting them into your connections. So we got our green one here. You just slide it in. Hold it nice and tight. Make sure there's good connection in there. Give it a twist. Make sure it's nice and tight. Give it a 20-pound pull test, we call it. So just a little tug. Make sure it doesn't come out. An eternity later, I've got them all in there. So they're nice and snug. Nothing's wiggling. Got no extra wires hanging out. You can see a little bit of the copper, but that's all right, as long as everything is sandwiched in there really good and you got good contact. Now we just have to wiggle our cord back out, which is a little tight, and line up our screws with the little holes in there so that we can tighten it down. Don't forget to give the clamp a little tightened to make sure that everything is nice and waterproof and weatherproof in there. And there you have it. You have a brand new block heater cord end, or any end for any extension cord you happen to have kicking around your house that needs a little bit of work. Don't forget to clean up your tools. I hope this video helped you, and we'll see you in the next one.